Yeah,
Even
I don't.
still, though,
I don't
it's
do
like-
martini glasses.
Yeah.
That's actually one thing that I do say in the book.
Do cheers? It's too risky. Welcome to the Food 52 video studio. My name is Josh. I'm here with Rebecca.
Hey.
Our drinks expert for the day. This is perfect. Normally the Food 52 community has a lot of questions that we answer on this show. Today I'm gonna have a lot of questions because I know hardly anything about cocktails and I'm eager to hear what you have to say.
Excellent. I can't wait.
So, bunch of tools, bunch of bottles. We're gonna sort of go through Home Bar 101 for beginners, would you say?
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah. So your book is called Aperitif. What is the difference between like an aperitif or a cocktail, let's say?
So an aperitif is a cocktail.
Okay.
But it's kind of a subset. So it's usually low ABV, which means low alcohol by volume. And then aperitif is actually quite an interesting term because it's basically the bottle, the drink, and the time of day. So it's 3 different things.
All
but
right.
it's, at the end of the day, it's the cocktail that you're drinking.
And because it's less alcoholic, it's more sort of like starting off the evening, like the thing that you do at the beginning of the night sort of thing?
Exactly.
Right.
So the book is called Aperitif, Cocktail Hour the French Way for good reason. It's cocktail hour, which we tend to think about in the U.S. as like 6 to 8. It can kind of like flux.
4 or 5.
4 or 5, 3, depending on the day.
Noon, yeah.
But the difference between kind of thinking about aperitif in the European sense versus cocktail hour or happy hour in the States is happy hour tends to kind of celebrate the end of the workday, like you're really excited for it to be over. And aperitif hour celebrates the start of the evening. And so a little bit more of a positive spin on things. It opens the evening, it opens your palate. The drinks tend to be a little bit bitter in order to kind of engage your taste buds, spark them open. It comes along with a little snack. And you're ready to kind of go into your evening primed.
Cool. I'm excited to get started.
Cool.
So there's a whole tray full of tools, only some of which I can identify.
Why don't we try?
All right, yeah, let's do it together.
Okay, well, we can start with strainers because that's pretty easy.
Great.
So there are 2 different strainers here. You have your Hawthorne and your Julep strainer. You don't need both. I list both of them in the book, but you can choose one or the other. This one's easier for beginners because it kind of like sticks right in the glass and kind of holds it there. This guy is a little bit more chic and, bartender-esque.
So that's for after you've shaken a drink and you want to have the liquid but not the ice.
Exactly. Although what you can do also is just this.
Right.
And then you don't even need a strainer here.
So a shaker is like the one thing you're gonna need is a shaker.
Yeah, a shaker and also a bar towel.
Huh.
Like I spill all over myself. I don't know if you do, but like I'm not a clean cook or a clean bartender, and so I need this close by at all times.
All right.
So those are my 2 essentials. But yeah, strainer is great to have. Muddlers are lovely if you're using fresh citrus
These
or
guys.
like. Yeah,
Different than this guy.
That guy is a citrus reamer.
Great.
Also there as well. Fresh citrus, I believe strongly that it should be freshly squeezed.
Yes.
It just tastes better and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
But again, you could use a fork. Like you don't actually need these. You just like have it, stick a fork in it, and call it a day. The other thing you might really want is a wine key with a bottle opener on it. I don't know. There's some that have them without the wine key, but then you have 2 tools for a similar job when you can just have one. And then jiggers. Jiggers also come in all shapes and sizes.
By jiggers you mean tiny cups.
Tiny cups that measure things. And then the other tools are all of these peelers. I like a Y peeler.
I do too.
But yeah, that's for your like citrus, basically, which we use a lot in aperitifs because if you're using only 3 ingredients, 2, 3, 4 ingredients, the kind of end citrus note, either just like a little squeeze or a wheel or a round or whatnot, is really important. A paring knife is also an indispensable tool on your bar cart.
If you're starting from scratch, if you have no bottles on your bar cart, are these the few that you would begin with? Like the sort of the most essential ones?
Yes. When we're speaking about aperitifs, definitely. I would cut gin out just because it's not an aperitif, but we're going to be using it later.
Right.
So kind of my favorite aperitif is going to be vermouth, which comes in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
But we have kind of the original vermouth here, the Carpano, which is a roseau or a sweet vermouth.
Okay.
And we'll pour a little taste. But this is actually what would be considered the first aperitif. It's like, it started the game.
All right.
And it started in Italy. But we can do a little taste.
Sure. So this is sweet vermouth.
This is
There's
sweet
also
vermouth.
dry vermouth, which is a separate thing.
Yeah. It's great. It's sweet.
But it's not like candy. I mean, there's a complexity.
No,
happening.
definitely. So all three of the spirits that we're going to talk about today are fortified aperitifs.
Okay.
And all are wine-based. And so vermouth is starting us out.
When you say, sorry to interrupt. When
No,
you say
no.
fortified, like, what does that mean?
If you think about wine,
Yeah.
right? It's a lower ABV than you're going to have with like a gin or a vodka, etc. But when you stop the fermentation with a higher proof spirit, it ups the proof slightly and also stops the sugars from converting, so it makes it a little sweeter.
So it's wine basically with a little something stronger added to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that something stronger actually also helps it be more shelf stable. By shelf stable, I mean it still has to be refrigerated after opening.
Right.
But it's going to last longer than a bottle of wine that you've just, like a bottle of rosé that you've opened.
Sure.
You're going to like be able to keep it a little
You mentioned
while
refrigeration. That's important. I think a lot of people will open these bottles and leave them out for like months at a time.
Absolutely. And they're so pretty on your bar cart. You don't want to put them in the fridge, but you should because they're going to turn and oxidize because oxygen is going to get in the second you open it. And so you put it in the fridge, you keep it there. It's also meant to be served chilled, so you're kind of like taking a step out. You don't have to add ice in that case. But so basically you have red vermouth, rosso, or rouge if you're on the other side, dry vermouth, the Marseillan vermouth, and then you have bianco or blanc vermouth, which is going to be your kind of version of red vermouth that's sweet, but like extra sweet. It's got more sugar than both of the other type of styles. I love it. It's really good just on the rocks with a twist, but it's really sweet.
Next bottle.
This is Lillet Blanc. It's the, I hesitate to say original, and we can get into why I'm hesitating. But we have Blanc, Rouge, and Rosé, which correspond to, of course, white wine, red wine, rosé wine.
I see. So it's the original wine that gets, some process happens to it and it turns into what's in the bottle now.
Yeah. So it's a fortified aromatized wine, again.
Similar to the vermouth.
Similar to the vermouth, but different. So Lillet gets fortified with brandy.
Okay.
And then the fortified wine is macerated with a secret blend of citrus, other aromatics, and then quinquina bark, which is also quinine, which is, so when you think of tonic water, that bitterness, that's going to be what's infused in here as well. But all three different types, the Blanc, the Rouge, and the Rosé, have a slightly different mix of aromatics. The Blanc and the Rouge are going to be then aged in oak, so they have a little bit more of that oaky flavor, although I wouldn't go Chardonnay. And then the Rosé skips that entirely. It goes right into stainless steel, so you get that bright, fresh Rosé feel that we all know and love.
Should we taste this?
Yeah. So this is the classic. You're going to find this more places.
So this, right off the bat, smells more like white wine compared to the sweet vermouth.
Yeah. So it's sweet, a bitter end note, but not too bitter. You can drink it alone. This is room temperature and honestly delicious. Like, you should put an ice cube in it, but because it does need to be stored in the fridge, you can serve it just right out of the bottle if it's cold.
So next up we have two different bottles of sherry. Sherry is sort of its own universe, very complex, like different categories.
Yes.
We're gonna just touch on this briefly, I guess, and give like the bare essentials here.
We're gonna try.
Yeah.
We're gonna try. Sherry's fun. Sherry is like its own magical little wonderland where it can be crazy dry, like bone dry, and then like insanely sweet and like robust and like syrupy almost.
All right.
Great.
So do you taste the Fino first?
Yeah, I would go first Fino because it's probably going to be a little lighter, and you usually try to taste light to dark, but like it's not going to matter that much. I'd put that in a martini, right? So good.
In place of the vermouth.
Yeah. Yes.
That'd be
Look at you,
See?
learning things. Manzanilla. So really similar in flavor.
Yeah.
Okay, so Fino and Manzanilla sherry are actually, so Manzanilla sherry is a Fino sherry, but it's made in a very specific town in Spain. It's a little saltier in profile, which is probably what you're tasting, right?
I couldn't put my finger on it, but I would say that's
exactly. It's from the coastal winds
cool.
that run through the town.
Yeah. I've tended to gravitate away from sherry and more toward the first couple things that we tasted. But like when you think about it in terms of like an expression of a place, it makes me more curious to give it another
circle
chance.
back around. Yeah. It's a great to start the night. It's fantastic to start, and it's really good in cocktails.
I like what you were saying earlier, how you have your drink and you drink a little and you eat a little. You eat, it makes you want to drink. You drink, it makes you want to eat. It's all sort of like a very relaxed feeling vibe.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden it's dinner time.
Yeah.
So in the book, I do have a bunch of recipes for snacks because a really essential part of aperitif hour is snacks.
Yeah.
And they can be like kind of what we have here, which is just like an assortment of things either you've made or you kind of put together and it looks like you made them, or you just like open a bag of chips and sit down by the canal and have a drink.
I like that,
and that
aspect
is an aperitif
to it too, where you don't have to like totally wow someone with like a 5-hour homemade thing. It's like you're keeping it very simple. So you can buy radishes, some soft butter, salt, you're done. Make tapenade or buy cured meat, some combination of those type of things.
It's like a combination of mostly salty things, crunchy things, fresh and light. Crudités are really nice for aperitif. Charcuterie is always like, I mean, I love charcuterie, so like I put it on everything.
In your book, you have a recipe for potato chips, right?
I do, yeah.
Cool.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
Those are really fun. And like you can, store-bought are great, but also if you want to impress your friends, you can make them yourself.
Let's make some drinks already, right?
Yeah.
What have we been doing all this time?
I know, tasting.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do like a side-by-side comparison of the Negroni. So we'll do classic with Campari, and then we're gonna do the aperitif lower ABV, although not that much lower ABV.
Right.
Although we're dumping out the gin on that one and subbing in sherry.
Cool.
So we'll see what happens.
Classic, and then sort of a more
classic
stylized.
And an aperitif thing, but
Right,
it still has Campari in both. Okay, so classic Negroni first.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Negronis are easy. They're equal parts everything, tant per tant. So it's like all you really have to do is measure. And as we were talking off camera before, you can choose your portion. So it's usually ounce, ounce, ounce. But hey, if you want to do 2 ounces of each thing and make it into a large drink, you can do that. But we're gonna do 1 ounce each.
Sure. Do you have a rule for like which cocktails you can batch and make ahead of time versus which you need to make at the last second?
Absolutely. It's basically the rule is if there's citrus in it, make it last minute because it's going to break everything down. If there's not, like this, you could make this, put it in a pitcher. You could make a pitcher of Negronis.
Yeah.
And then stir it over ice at the end and just serve it like that. Yeah.
And that's like people are doing barrel aged Negronis now as well.
Exactly.
So what do we throw in there just now? Gin, Campari, and
sweet vermouth. Yeah. And if you wanted to go crazy, you could sub in Blanco vermouth for sweet vermouth.
So while you're making this drink, when are you shaking cocktails and when are you stirring them?
So it usually comes down to citrus. That's like a nice, like easy, like common denominator. Okay. If it has citrus in it, you're gonna shake it, or an egg white or something like that. Right. Although you usually have citrus and you have an egg white in there. So, but you're gonna stir with kind of straight alcohol or spirits.
Sure. I always thought that ice is actually one of the most important parts of the cocktail.
Yeah.
That if you just have the spirits and they're mixed in the right proportion, it doesn't even matter unless you also have a certain amount of melted ice in your drink, and that's sort of what brings it all together.
Yeah, so ice, diluting ice matters just as much as the ice cubes that are in the final drink. So we've stirred this over ice, which is going to add water content to it and lower the ABV of the drink and also allow things to mix all together.
Right.
You don't want to let it sit too long because it's going to dilute too much, and then you're going to have a less
But having that perfect dilution,
drink.
like whether you're shaking it or stirring it, there's going to be a little bit of ice melting in your drink, and that's an important component to it.
Absolutely, and you want to use good ice. You don't want to use old ice. You want to have fresh ice that doesn't smell like whatever else is in your freezer, because then your drink is going to smell like whatever else is in your freezer.
That's smart. That makes a lot of sense.
So this guy skips the gin and adds in sherry. Actually, I'm going to use the Fino sherry.
Is it the same ratio, 1-1-1?
It is. It is 1-1-1.
And this is in your book? The sherry Negroni.
This is in the book, yeah. Fino sherry, manzanilla sherry, either one works. Sweet vermouth, equal parts. And then Campari, again, equal parts.
Generally, when you stir a cocktail, you stir for about like 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah, you really just want to chill it down, dilute it slightly, but not actually like, this guy's been sitting for a little bit, so it might be a little diluted, but we'll survive.
Yeah.
And then the color is similar, although you can kind of see the difference. The sherry added a little bit more viscosity to it than the gin.
Now, for the lazy home bartender, does this orange peel make a difference?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, it adds something. So technically, for this cocktail in the book, it's made with a grapefruit peel, and actually, why don't you try it with and without?
It's a good idea.
Right?
A lot of it has to do with aroma too, right? Where in addition to the taste of the cocktail, just having the sort of like oils and essence of the pit.
You're gonna pick it up on your nose first, and then when you drink it, it's gonna be less about the actual flavor in your mouth, but it's gonna kind of all come together. It's a classic Negroni.
Yeah.
So we'll just do that. I like to wipe it around the edge so you get that and drop it in. I'm gonna do the other one.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Do you want to try the Fino sherry one now?
Sure.
Great. So that's going to be stronger in ABV because it has the gin in it, and a little more neutral in tone. You're going to get a lot more of the Campari and the vermouth. Sherry takes over a little bit more in this guy.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Where like you can tell that there's an oxidized aspect to this drink.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing is it still has that like stiff drink feel to it. So like a lot of people think of aperitifs as like really bubbly, and a lot of tonics and sodas used as mixers, and they are. But then you can have these kind of like stirred drinks that actually do feel like you're getting like a boozy profile without actually having to drink a crap
I could see like drinking this in a rocks glass with like one big ice cube in it, as if it's like whiskey or something.
Exactly, a snifter, if you will. Yeah.
That's great. If you're a fan of sherry, I think that's a great something.
I think so too.
To enjoy it that way.
Yeah. It's nice. It's easy. You don't have to worry about proportions. I mean, you could free pour this if you really wanted to. It's kind of nice to make sure that you have all the proportions right. But by the end of like apero hour, I'm just like.
Yeah, you could eyeball it.
Yeah, exactly.
We tasted two Negronis. They were both delicious, the classic and the sherry version. What else do you have for me?
So for this guy, we're going to use, since we have two different types of sherries today, we use the Fino for the take on the sherry Negroni. So we're going to use the manzanilla for the Adonis.
All right. I'm excited to taste this type of sherry because it's the one that had a little more of salinity to it.
Exactly. So I used orange bitters in this guy. You could, if you don't have them, you can use Angostura bitters or Pichard or whatever you want to use. And then I'm going to just peel this guy. So for my Adonis, I don't actually drop the peel in the drink itself. I express in and then drop. Yeah, this is just a gentler way to cool your drink down. You're not serving it over ice, this guy, so you really want it to be nice and chilled. If we were like really smart, we would have put our coupes in the freezer for a little bit.
Do cheers? It's too risky.
Yeah.
It's really nice. The simplicity of the stuff that you're showing is really nice.
It's great. And you can definitely taste the difference with the Fino and the manzanilla sherry when you're making a drink like this as well.
This was genuinely a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I'm really happy you came on.
It was
I
great.
learned a bunch of stuff.
Good.
People at home, I think, are going to sort of know how to set up their home bar, how to begin their aperitif lifestyle.
It's a good lifestyle.
It is. I'm enjoying myself right now. For those of you watching at home, Dear Test Kitchen is going to take a brief hiatus. After this episode comes out, there's going to be a small pause, and we're going to come back in the fall with all brand new episodes. During that pause, I want you to go to the Food 52 hotline, write in your food-related questions, your drink-related questions. Maybe your question is going to turn into an episode in the future. So check out this book, Aperitif. Thank you, Rebecca, for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.